Hey guys, so the topic for today is how to deliver exceptional project results. I hope you all got the right room. Let me start with some admin details first. The way I structured it is I have taken a historical example. We'll have to go back to Soviet Union in 1950s, the Virgin Lands project. And you can see how well that one ended just by the title, the Virgin Lands fiasco. And we will end that discussion with that presentation with some questions. And then we will fast forward into the 21st century, and I will share with you some discussions I was having in my consulting experience with C-level executives, VPs, project and product managers of various companies. Then we will zoom out even more, and we will look at industry-wide statistics when it comes to the project management and project portfolio management, which is the selection of projects. Next step, once we realize that not everything is peachy when it comes to managing projects and selecting the right projects and the right products for the company, we will try going through a series of mini cases that I titled typewriter example, final exam gone very wrong example, and the Caribbean house example. Try to derive a formula. What does it take to deliver exceptional project results? We will have a detailed view, look at the very detailed view of project and project portfolio management. By the way, whenever I'm saying portfolio management in the context of this presentation, I don't mean stocks. I mean selecting right projects for your company, selecting the winning products and services for your company. We will have kind of final detailed answer, final detailed formula of, what does it take to deliver exceptional project results. Okay. As promised, let me start with an historical example, which I find kind of quite fascinating and interesting enough to include it in the book. I think it's chapter 15 of the book, and to share it with you. For that, we go into 1950s, former Soviet Union. Well, Soviet Union at the time. Basically, what was happening in 1953 is that the government, keep in mind, socialist, very siloed economy, they discovered that the production of wheat, meat, and dairy has plummeted to historical levels. Partially because of World War II that just ended recently, partially because for the 30 years prior to that, the government was investing 99% of their income into heavy industry and completely ignoring the agriculture sector. So Nikita Khrushchev, the handsome gentleman on the slide there, who was the leader of the country at the time, he came up with a very interesting, cool idea. He said, listen, Canadians are very successful with growing wheat and grains in the, the Manitoba, the Albertas, the Saskatchewan. We have a vast pieces of land smack in the middle of the country, southern Siberia and northern Kazakhstan. Wouldn't it be really cool if we could, start growing wheat over there? And because he was the president of the country, and because he said, wouldn't it be really cool if we could do this, project got initiated. And I'm pretty sure you've never seen that happen at your company. Someone says. The overall goal was quite interesting. It was to produce 20 million tons of grain by 1956. Just to give you some parameters of the project, 500,000 volunteers, soldiers, students, and agricultural professionals were moved from the western part of the country into the central part of the country, into the middle of nowhere, basically. 50,000 tractors, 6,000 trucks. By 1954, 190,000 square kilometers plowed. By 1955, another 140,000 square kilometers plowed. 1956, 60 million tons of grain was harvested. Compare that to the initial goal. And while the country was erupting in spontaneous celebrations, a couple of months later, they discovered the following things. Keep in mind, again, command socialist communist economy, where each ministry is responsible for their chunk of work. Yes, they had this 60 million tons of grain, but they forgot to order storage barns. They forgot to order freight trains because you have to take all this grain from the middle of the nowhere into the western part of the country where all the people live. They forgot to order harvesting equipment. The ministries in the government forgot to do that. As a result, to add insult to injury, despite getting 60 million tons of grain, they were forced to buy 20 million tons of grain from Canada. Why? Because those 60 million tons were basically wasted. Cost of wheat grown in Kazakhstan was 3 times than that grown in Ukraine, which was the traditional wheat growing area. In the hindsight, not a very surprising thing, because if you have to uplift 500,000 people and move them into the middle of nowhere and support them there and move all the equipment and freight trains and all that, it's not really surprising that the price went up, threefold. Another thing that apparently was well known to the advisor and to Khrushchev himself is that for any given year in that part of the world, there was a 40% chance of favorable weather conditions, and there was a 60% chance of really bad weather conditions. So 2 out of every 5 years you would get 60 million tons, and 3 out of 5 years you would get nothing. They just got lucky in 1956. Another problem, which again was known to the people, to the specialists in there, is that that area of the world had a very thin layer of soil. And underneath it was basically a very thick layer of dust and sand. And once they dug into that second layer, these are prairies we're talking about, 95 km/h winds. All of that stuff got lifted and deposited on nearby towns, adding to the cost of the cleanup and the entire thing. Now, if you pretend that you were the project manager of this project, and you were given a mandate, take these people, move them into the middle of nowhere, you get the tractors, you get the trucks, your job is to plow 43 million hectares of virgin lands and harvest 20 million tons of grain. And your actual performance was 53 million hectares plowed, 60 million tons of wheat was harvested. Did you do a good or a bad job as a project manager? If you were the project manager, if you were told, here's your mandate. This is not a trick question.
You did a good job. The project definition's bad.
You did a good job, right? In that case, who should have forecasted the high cost of the final product? Who should have said, wait a second, we're moving all these people into the middle of nowhere. We have to transport all that wheat from the middle of nowhere back to the western part. Maybe it's not a good idea to do that, or maybe we should recalculate the entire thing. Who should have done that? Who should have initiated several other parallel projects saying, oh, okay, we're going to be harvesting a whole bunch of grain, hence we need transportation, hence we need additional silos to be built, hence we need additional equipment. Keep in mind, again, very siloed economy, right? Who should have studied the historical meteorological data and said, well, wait a second, 2 out of 5 years we get a lot of stuff, and 3 out of 5 years we get nothing? Who should have foreseen the ecological impact? All that sand and dust being deposited on nearby towns. Who should have assessed the overall value of the project, considering that you have to order additional trains, you have to keep these people in the middle of nowhere, which drives up the cost. You have to address the ecological issues, etc., etc., etc. And here's the million-dollar question. If these were not project management mistakes, because we just said project manager did a good job, right, given the mandate, what kind of mistakes were those? This presentation is dedicated to project and portfolio management. We just said these are not project management mistakes. What mistakes are these? Portfolio management. These are the mistakes that were supposed to be addressed at a much higher level than the project management, the strategic level and the tactical level. Let's fast forward to 21st century. Couple of slides. I provide more examples in the book, but these are the most telling examples. I'm me personally, having a conversation with the CEO. And by the way, as I'm going through this example, see if you can relate back to them, if you would have similar conversation with the CEO of your own company. Very large company, I call them semi-government organization, crown corporation, very siloed with a whole bunch of departments, not very dynamic. And he goes to me, you know what, we have a lot of mega projects that we're doing right now. Some of them in the ballpark of $200, $300, $500 million. And he goes, my people keep whining, all the way from project managers to technical resources to department heads, that we need more resources, we need more resources. We cannot accomplish all of the projects that you're giving us to do with the resources that we have. And he goes, I have a problem with that, because I don't know whether A, they're lying to me, And I'm quoting. I'm not making this up. And I have to continue pressuring them. You know, roll up your sleeves and work harder. Roll up your sleeves and work harder. Stay late. Deliver this. Or they're telling the truth, and I either have to provide them with additional resources, or I have to cut some projects. If I decide to provide them with additional resources, how do I justify to the board of directors that, yeah, this is a worthwhile investment of money? If I have to cut some projects, which projects am I supposed to cut? How do I know? Because whatever comes through the pipeline, we just automatically say yes to that. We say, yeah, okay, we'll do this. Here's another one which actually became an inspiration to writing the book, believe it or not. I was working as a project manager for an IT department of a large retail company here in Vancouver. The business model at that company, and I'm not going to name it, but you can probably guess what company it is that business pays real dollars for IT services. So every time business comes to IT and says, I want you to do this, $150 an hour. With me? So on the same day before lunch, accounting people come to me and say, Jamal, we have this project we would like you to do. I go, okay, what's the project? What's the deal? They go, we have this glitch in our accounting system that causes a certain percentage of our transactions to end up in an accounting black hole. To make a long story short, at the end of every, say, month or quarter, we have to go deploy our accountants. They have to take those transactions manually and repost them properly. And I go, just out of curiosity, let's look at some financial benefits of this project. And they go, well, we think we can save $100,000 per year if this issue is addressed. And I go to them, you know what, I think the project will cost about $50,000. Again, for simplicity, let's assume that indeed the project cost was $50,000 and indeed estimated annual savings were $100,000. Is it a good project or not? Put on the CEO hat. If I come to you and say, give me $50,000, for the next 5 years, you're going to save $100,000. Obviously. They come back to me and go, sorry, we don't have that kind of money in our budget. Go, okay, think about it, come back next year, but really, it's a worthwhile investment. Same day, after lunch. I may not have even noticed that if it didn't happen on the same day. Marketing people come to me. Jamal, can you please make this website look pretty? Go, what do you mean? They come up with a very, very long list of things. Change the font from Arial to Times New Roman, from size 10 to 11. Change the shape of bullets from round to square, from red to black. Insert a picture, I kid you not, insert a picture of a cute puppy here. Very long list, total cost $50,000. And against my better judgment, because I'm working as a consultant for a company that charges $150 an hour for my time. They don't care whether this is a worthwhile investment or not. I go, what's the purpose of this project? They go, well, this is a website. I go, is this customer-facing website? No. It's for intranet. And this intranet, that particular part of the website, is being used by who? Junior salespeople at our stores. So what do they do with that? Well, they download their schedules, and if there is a United Way campaign, they can go and look it up there. And I go, okay, the site looks okay as is. It's targeted at your internal people. It's targeted at your junior people. Why all these changes? I mean, it's 50,000. What's the value? Yeah, it's kind of, because I own my own business, I have that disease. I tend to put on the CEO hat once in a while, sometimes against my better judgment. And they go, dude, we have money in our budget, and we feel like spending it. Right? Ever seen that happen? Especially government companies, especially larger organizations. And right away I'm saying, as a project manager, I don't really care. Right? But if I put on the CEO hat, there's something horribly wrong with this picture. Again, $50,000 is not a big deal. But it could be indicative of the overall, that a project that has a real value for the company does not get the investment. And a project that has no value whatsoever, inserting a picture of a puppy, changing the fonts a little bit, has $50,000. If I was the CEO of the company, I would be a little bit concerned. Make sense? Ever seen that happen?